Hey, I'm And.
And I'm Beck.
And we are the Gold Diggers, because we believe there's gold found in everyone.
Everyone is unique, interesting and exciting with a great story to share.
And we aim to find it.
The question is, can we rise to the challenge and strike gold? Stay tuned to find out as we chat to today's mystery guest.
Honey, you're my sugar.
So this is how it works. One of us knows who the mystery guest is and the other one doesn't. And today it's Angie's turn to find the gold in our mystery guest, ROZ White. Welcome to the show, Roz.
Hello, ladies.
So good to have you here.
I am so looking forward to getting to know you, Roz, because you're very well known here on the Sunshine Coast and your name gets bandied about all over the place. And so I'm looking forward to finding out why.
I am too.
So obviously, Ange, you know a little bit about Roz already. And for our listeners, Roz is the owner of multiple IGA shops on the Sunshine Coast. And Roz is also married to Michael and she has two children, Harrison and Sophie, who are in their early 20s.
Yes.
So
wow, you've done your homework, Beck. I'm really impressed. You rolled that off.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to send you out of the room now.
Okay, I'll see you in a minute.
Honey, you're my sugar.
Okay, Roz, I am so excited to have you here because I'm a little bit of a fangirl of yours.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I shop at your IGA at Forest Glen pretty much every day on the way home from work. I go and pick up dinner and I've got to say it is so impressive. Like the layout of that shop, just the staff are beautiful, the products are amazing. So for our listeners, I just want to give a quick recap. So you started in 1993. You bought a grocery store.
A little tiny, very small, modest convenience store, yes.
Yeah, with 3 employees.
Yes.
That's how you started.
Yeah.
And now you have grown to 8?
6. Yes.
6 IGAs on the Sunshine Coast. And what I'm totally impressed with is that you source your products from 200 local farms and producers here on the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. Aren't we so blessed to have that available to us?
Amazing.
And so we just really embrace it. It's we're fortunate to have it and it is an incredible privilege.
It's just amazing that you have enabled this for the Sunshine Coast. And so my gold that I see in you already, and we've only just met in person, but I just think you're a real gold nugget for the Sunshine Coast. You are a gem. And I think we're all very grateful to you for investing into our region and for enabling so many people to be producers and for us to enjoy our local produce. So thank you so much, Roz. You're an amazing, amazing woman.
Oh, goodness me. Well, that's very kind. Thank you, Beck. But truly, I just feel like it's an honour to be able to provide or to, have the privilege of being able to deliver that or provide that or to facilitate it, I guess. Really at the end of the day, I'm just part of a process to be able to connect people and consumers and to enjoy and be a part of what is just fabulously luscious and created here on the Sunshine Coast.
And we have a beautiful region, don't we, with so much fresh fruit and veggies and meats and I think anyone in your situation could have just gone with source from overseas or whatever, but you chose to invest in your local community, and I think that's a blessing for us all. So we're going to get Ange back in.
All right.
And she can dig your story out.
Okay.
Honey, you're my sugar.
Good to be back.
Did you miss us?
I did.
Yeah.
I was out there reading emails, checking in on work.
Yeah.
You're having a nice chat.
Yeah. Back in the zone.
I am. Right, back to you, Roz. IGAs. Now, I do know that about you. I know that you're a businesswoman and that you've built a very substantial business, particularly in IGAs and supermarkets. But before we go into that, because I know that is going to be a fascinating story and journey for you, tell me about your childhood. How did you grow up? Were you highly educated? What was that like for you?
Youngest of 8 children, grew up in rural Queensland, so on a farm. And to depict me as a child, think of a little scrawny kid with long rat's tail hair and no shoes running around with complete freedom. And I had a very happy childhood, but as the youngest of 8 children, and I had 4 brothers and 3 sisters, and doing all sorts of building cubbies and playing under the house, making roads and with trucks and eating red soil pies and so riding motorbikes and trucks and horses and you name it, tractors, a sense of great freedom, and a wonderful experience growing up in the bush.
And what was it like being the youngest of 8? Were you the one that was kind of left to fend for themselves, or were you the typical youngest child that got all the favours?
Oh, well, depends who you ask. No, if you ask my family, they still call me the spoilt brat and have a good old laugh about it.
It's all right, I'm the youngest
very
too.
Unkind.
That's why I'm asking.
Honestly, I think by the time we got to Mum, rearing all those children, she forgot to take photos of me when I was a baby. Everything became very blasé. But no, look, I was just really well looked after by lots and lots of older brothers and sisters. And I think when you have older siblings, you really always look up to them as kind of like your little heroes.
Yeah.
And that never changes, does it, I think?
Well, you do you try to follow in their footsteps if they're taking a good path anyway.
You have a lot to look up to.
Yeah.
7 of them.
Yeah, exactly right.
Wow.
Yeah.
It seems to be quite an Aussie thing. I think particularly sort of in that era that there were large families. I know many friends of mine, they've had like 7 or 8 kids in the family. Growing up in England, we just don't have the space.
That's right. You need a couple of houses and join them together.
So, and I remember some of my greatest childhood memories were like, because we lived on acreage and building a tree house. And I've got an older brother and sister, and I just remember trying to climb the tree to get in this tree house. And some of those are the greatest memories. And it's something we've lost, I think, a bit now, is to allow kids to just be kids, to roam free, to play outdoors.
Did you ever do the billy cart?
No.
We made a makeshift billy cart and took it down a hill and stacked it.
Yeah.
It was so fun.
A few stitches.
Yeah, that's right. But we survived. And we didn't sue anyone.
And what was school life like for you then?
Well, I went to, I skipped kindy. Look at me, what a rebel. Went straight to grade 1, and it was a very small school. So initially we had 2 teachers in the school. And so I did grade 1, 2, 3. With Mrs. Randall at Colston Lake State School. And then I think it was about grade 4 or 5, it reduced down to a 1-teacher school. So we had 7 grades in one classroom.
Wow.
And there was about 22 children in the entire school. So I think when I graduated grade 7, there were 4 of us that graduated. Wow.
Talk about multitasking for that teacher.
Yeah, I know. And we had the old chalkboards.
Yeah.
And he used to split the classroom into 2 sort of sections in one room.
Yeah.
And so you'd have grades 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it would have tasks. He'd break it up on that chalkboard. And then grade 5, 6, 7 would have their tasks written up on this chalkboard over here. So you just... And so in grade 7, I can remember going into the library and reading to the grade 1 kids. Yeah. Just things like that. We were a part of the... Yeah, so look, it was... but we used to, because we got the bus to school, the bus would drop us off and then it had to take kids onto the next sort of town for the kids that attended that school. And so we would probably be dropped off the school about 8 o'clock in the morning. And so for a whole hour before school started, we would run around the whole school, 20 kids, playing a game of soccer with, bare feet running across the prickles before we went into class. So.
Sounds awesome.
It does. Now, obviously, you're an entrepreneur. So I'm from a family of entrepreneurs, and I know those characteristics are seen as a child. Were they seen in you? Did you have that entrepreneurial spirit even when you were young?
I don't know, I was influenced. Here's a little bit of a story to sort of explain what I mean. My brother, when I was about 6 or 7, he popped me on the back of a horse, and I barely got my feet in the stirrups, and he just whacked it on the bum, boom, and off it went. And I was just clinging on for grim death. Nobody ever taught you anything.
The beauty of brothers.
Yes, they're gorgeous. And so it was never really like somebody takes the time and they sit down and they, this is how you drive the tractor. It'd be...
Hold
you
on
just
for
kind
dear
of
life.
watch your older siblings or whatever and pick it up on the go.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of just getting on,
Yeah.
getting into it, just getting on, doing whatever. And I think that is the thing that I still carry with me now. It's sort of like, all right, it needs to be done. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's great, isn't it? It's because nothing is a hurdle then.
Yeah.
Everything has the ability to be overcome. And having that mentality is awesome.
You just hit that horse on the backside and hold on for dear life.
Yeah. You're either hang on
business.
and you
That is business.
get to the you're okay or you fall off.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
it. That is
so
business.
did you stay there on the farm until you graduated school?
I did, yes. So I did graduate, but I ended up doing the last couple of years of my schooling by correspondence because, so the school I went to only went to year 10 and I graduated year 10 and then went on to do further study. But it was a time when my 4 brothers had relocated to a cattle station in far north Queensland. And so my dad needed me on the farm. So I became his right-hand girl on the farm as well as, studying to get my education, which was a great experience. So, had a lot of time with Dad, a lot of great memories.
And there's a lot to be learnt in that, just in farming. It's, there's a lot about business you learn in that environment. And so...
There surely is, particularly when you have, my father was intolerant of people that are incapable or incompetent and a lot of not negotiables. So, again... it was just expected. It didn't matter what you were facing, what challenge, or might be a Brahman bull sort of or a snotty Brahman cow there snorting at you and you're expected to close the gate or regardless. All I wanted to do was crawl up the rails. But I daren't do that to my father. And I think that embedded a lot of resilience.
Yeah.
Determination, tenacity.
Yeah.
You don't understand the lessons you're being taught. You just think Dad's being tough or, you're just doing it because you're too frightened not to. Then looking back in life, I've been able to draw an immense amount of strength from those experiences. And it almost makes you fearless in some ways. And it's very empowering if, I've been many times been faced in very intimidating situations. And I'll often think about that and it sort of empowers me to think, no, you'll be right. You're fine.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you can come face to face with the bull and survive that's awesome. And I think even just working on a farm, hard work gives you a great work ethic that it doesn't matter if you're sick or whatever. Animals need feeding. They need taken care of. And so you have to push through in order to do what needs to be done. And you've obviously translated that into your adult life. So from there, what then led you to where you are now?
Well, before I left that little area, the little region where I grew up, I was lucky enough to get the best job in town, which was at the local bank. And I continued to live on the farm and work full-time at the local bank in town. And then eventually I was able to get a transfer out of town. I was ready to go. By the time I was 21, it was like, I'm ready to go and explore the world. And so I was able to get a transfer to the beautiful Sunshine Coast and got a job at Maroochydore and really loved living here.
So you've been here since you were 21?
Yeah,
wow.
Pretty much. And then I met my husband. And in banking at that time, if you had any sort of ambition, there was an expectation you would travel. So that meant if we'd stayed in banking, then there was a good chance that we wouldn't be able to stay on the beautiful Sunshine Coast, and this is where we wanted to live.
Yeah.
And so we didn't have a lot of money, but we scratched up enough to buy our first store, and that's how it all started from there.
So you bought your first store before your first home, did you? Or
I actually had bought a house before I met Michael.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was, and then I had my, rented got my friends in and helped pay the mortgage.
And so he was in banking as well.
Yeah.
So it's something you've done together. the IGA. So why IGA? What made you
Well, the initial
that
store
business?
wasn't an IGA. It was a little night owl convenience store. So just a small convenience store, Maroochydore, on Aerodrome Road. And it was just the business that became available. So there wasn't really any great, oh my gosh, I want to be a bag house grocer. It was more just that's what I guess was available and that's what we could afford. And it was a start. And actually, for about 10 years or 15 years, I just didn't get it at all. So there was no enjoyment from my perspective.
Yeah.
I didn't find any fun in stacking Coke and baked beans. I just didn't get it. And it was just hard work, 7 days a week, 18 hours a day. And, didn't really find the gold, in what we were doing for a very long time. But so eventually that changed, and then we had a fairly robust growth strategy and wanted to continue to grow.
Yeah, I know that for most business owners, they find those first years incredibly hard, and some actually don't make it over maybe that 5-year mark where then business begins to take off. You've obviously got a number of different IGA stores, and I know for most business owners, when you're managing and owning and running the business yourself, there is a big leap between that to then running multiple stores and expanding. And there's a big stretch in between self-managing to managing over multiple. So what was that season like for you?
Yeah, it's actually a brilliant question because there's a lot of pain points in that growth phase. I call them growing pains. Right at the beginning, you're very much hands-on everything. You're touching every part of the business, and you're the customer service person, you're the everything. You're sort of across everything. But then as you grow, of course, and it was a gradual growth for us, so it wasn't we didn't expand overnight. There are some definite pain points where you understand that you need to develop strategy or create a plan or do things differently or introduce support programs and systems and processes, and you're not even sure. You don't know what you don't know. You're not even sure what you have to develop, but you know you have to develop. So you just get started. And I guess uncovering, there was a point we were growing our team. We probably had maybe 80 or so, so you having to already do things a little bit differently and rely on managers or supervisors to, help manage teams. So therefore you start building a workforce where then you're not really the person, you're losing your impact. I can be self-motivated, but then you're relying on others to be motivated. So how do you motivate your team to deliver on what it is that is your vision? I was not sure how to do that, and I reached out to a lot of professionals and said, how do I motivate my team? And they couldn't really give me an answer. So that was the time when I signed up at the Sunshine Coast University and did a Bachelor of Business. I didn't quite complete it, but Bachelor of Business degree, majoring in Human Resource Management. And I learned enough to be able to understand how to motivate people, I guess, how to manage people. So information is power. It's the learning along the way, and I think that's the thing that helps you get through your pain points and helps you growth and develop systems and programs. And I do fully believe that a lot of businesses, you can have a fantastic idea, and entrepreneurs will come up with amazing ideas and they will make it work. But if you don't underpin your idea with structure, that's, I think, where a lot of businesses fall over.
Yeah.
And it's no different to the formation of anything. It needs to have strong structure and foundations for it to be resilient. And that's the boring part of business. So, a lot of people think a great idea is just going to sell.
Yeah.
It might for a period, but if it's not sustainable, then it's not going to be a success. All of those things I've learned along on the journey. And it's just been self-exploratory. Just, okay, I don't really know how to do this. I know what I have to do, but you just get on and find the answers and the solutions. And it's a continuous improvement approach. We're still refining after 30 years.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we're always learning, aren't we? And the bigger you grow, there's always new things to learn. But it's interesting that stretch from being the sole owner and manager of the one store. There's also a leap of faith that you're taking financially to stretch bigger, to go to multiple centres. What kind of self-belief did you need to have to make that step?
Often it would just come down to it's an opportunity, you can't help yourself. As an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, you just see the opportunity and you can't help yourself. But it's a calculated risk, but yes, and a huge part of that is risk. And it's almost like a conversation might be, you just think, well, if it all goes pear-shaped, then we're still okay. We're still all right.
Yeah.
You know, I can deal with that.
Yeah.
At what point did your grocery store become an IGA? Like, what made you jump into the IGA branding?
That happened we had 3 stores and we bought our little Mount Coolum store, and it was a no-name store. I think it was not one that people would recognise today. You know, for anyone in the industry, it was an AUR store, which probably doesn't mean anything to anyone. We looked at the independent network and identified that IGA was the most progressive independent brand in Australia, even though it was still relatively new to Australia. It only really came to our shores in 1996 from America. But we'd identified that's where we wanted to be. So it was about 2003. And remember, that was 10 years into the journey, but it was still had a lot to learn. We applied to IGA to move to the brand as retailers, to have that red oval over our front door. And they rejected us and they said, no, you're not good enough retailers.
Wow.
So it was a bit of self-reflection and licking our wounds for a while, and, you know, they were probably right. But, you know, that's a good kick up the pants to then go and make sure that
Because
you
I'm
are
just thinking,
good enough.
looking at you now, how did they reject you?
Well, we're only on our journey, you know. We were remembering we're coming from banking into a whole new industry we knew nothing about. So there was a lot to learn.
What were some of those things that you learnt that you didn't know that have perhaps taken you by surprise?
I guess, you know, some of the compliance aspects, even just the financial model, formulating a particular financial model that is sustainable, or a model that is financially sustainable, that is competitive, provides competitive advantage. They're the things that I've learnt and developed until I've got to. So the clarity of my purpose really only started to formulate 15 years in, and I started to see those green shoots of, I can see this is what I would love to buy, and I'm going to go and try and find that because that makes us a bit different. And that was the beginning of a program that we developed, the Locavore Food Program, which is showcasing and embraces local producers and growers and providers on the Sunshine Coast, and the artists and the bespoke products that we find in 2005, say, you would only find at, say, the farmers markets or, you know, a market style outlet. Even gluten-free. You know, in Australia in 2005, gluten-free was rare to find products anywhere. And just specialty bread makers and whatever. And so I started to source a lot of these products and go, how do I get you into my store? Because I had an interest and I knew I could see something that it had some value for the customer and wanted to introduce that.
Well, it's funny you say that, because actually I kind of feel IGA is a different shopping experience to other supermarkets. And there is more of a personalised feel about it, which I can't explain really. But there are interesting items that I think, I've not seen that anywhere else. And even the delicatessen and everything. There's just foods there that you could buy that would interest everybody, really, that you can't purchase anywhere else.
Even my kids are like, oh, Mum, these apples taste so good. And it's because they're locally sourced. And we were saying earlier, ROZ sources local produce from 200 local producers here on the sunny coast. 200.
Yeah, that's huge.
Incredible.
It is huge. So, for instance, our beans, zucchinis, broccoli, Brussels sprouts will be grown near Gympie, you know, and it's seasonal produce. Yeah. But we have an abundance of it here. You know, the fresh seafood comes out of Mooloolaba, organic tea that's brought in and manufactured at Coolum, coffee. There's lots of coffee providers on the Sunshine Coast. We have local water. We have lots of beautiful bread. Yeah. We have artisan bread makers. We have amazing dressings and condiments and cheese and almost every commodity of what we have on our shelves, there's a representation or a local option.
Yeah, and you can tell it's been chosen because it's like somebody enjoys eating this food or using this product, and to know that you actually have that involvement in the products you select, it makes it feel like a family kind of feel to your shopping experience.
It's true, yeah.
Well, that's the, creating joyful experiences and educating and raising awareness, because it is a joyful experience eating local produce, because it does taste better, it is better quality, but there's a lot more behind that. It's sustainable, it's low food miles.
Yeah.
It adds vibrancy not just to the community but to the market in general. It is supporting our community, families, jobs. The ripple impact is immense.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe it stems from being a primary producer's daughter.
Yeah.
And a love for food and quality and freshness. You eat a local strawberry that's grown at Glasshouse Mountains straight from the farm. It is just going to blow your mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's no comparison. The lettuce that is grown at Pomona, the crispness, the freshness, it lasts longer in your fridge.
Yeah.
So again, that's reducing food waste, because food is eaten and consumed because it lasts longer. It's a better quality. It's better eating.
Yeah.
So this is why you're so well known on the Sunshine Coast, because you've obviously made all those connections with local farmers, those, with local produce. You're actually growing this region.
Yeah.
Economically, and that is actually very significant for the Sunshine Coast.
So impressive, isn't it? Yeah.
And that's why I hear your name around all the time. And so I know that you're now in this role, not just covering IGAs, but you're also mentoring other people. People come to you for business advice. Before I go into what that looks like, what was that like for you? You must have had mentors, or as you said, you were expanding and you were trying to get your business structure in place. Who were the voices in your life that were helping you with that?
Multiple. And it is so important for guidance, because you are on a learning journey. And we're still on a learning journey. And I think if you stop listening, you stop growing. And learning is the pivotal thing. So talking to people, mentors, people that have done it before, people with experience, it's just critically important, and will be some of the building foundations that are required to make you successful. Knowledge is power. And initially our first two mentors, Rob and Sandy Cobb, who live here locally, we bought our very first store from them, and they helped us out financially with some vendor finance, because we just didn't quite have enough money to pay the stock. They helped us pay that off over 12 months. And they provided we stepped into a new industry and knew nothing. So they taught us really everything we needed to know to run a shop in the first instance. And they've remained our dear friends, and they still are today. And they're retired.
Yeah.
And we'll go and pick them up and take them out for lunch.
That's amazing.
And just enjoy their company. There's lots of other industry people along the way, and attending conferences. And I know it's difficult sometimes if you have a small business, where even to attend, to get out behind the counter or out of the office to go and attend. But if you can invest that time and learn from your industry colleagues, or learn from anywhere, whether it's an industry. I always encourage our team or anyone, read your industry publications. There's some gold embedded in there. It's stuff you need to know.
Yeah.
Attend conferences.
Yeah.
Attend local network. The Sunshine Coast Business Women's Network or whatever.
Yeah.
Join a chamber. Meet local people, and you're forever learning. So, you're forever
So you
growing.
mentioned Sunshine Coast Business Women's Network, and I know that you're a significant part of that. You hold a role on the board, is that right?
I'm the immediate past president.
Yes.
So,
okay.
Which is now being very ably led by Min Swan. And I've worked with some amazing ladies alongside some incredible women. Michelle Hamer, who's been one of your guests, and lots of other incredible women. It was a terrific, wonderful experience, and I would encourage anyone to get involved.
Yeah.
Because you're surrounding yourself with like-minded people. But the Sunshine Coast as a region is very unique in that what you will find when you live here is that true sense of support and collaboration, and it's genuine and it's authentic.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that exists everywhere.
It's unique, isn't
Yeah.
it? And I think the generosity, even like you're saying, your mentors who helped fund those initial expenses for you, that's a generous spirit, isn't it? And we have a lot of that here on the sunny coast, and it's very refreshing. It's lovely to see.
Yeah, there is a great community that really want to support each other on the Sunshine Coast, and I think that's such a great thing. And I think even Sunshine Coast Business Women's Network has actually encouraged that and facilitated it, which is awesome. As you know, I've come from a family of entrepreneurs myself, and I think there comes a level, like if I think of my dad when he was young, he was just one of these scallywags that would find an opportunity out of anything and he would make it work for him, and he would be able to see the gaps in the market and he would just take the risk and go for it. And that's kind of the mentality you need to be successful in business. And so he's risen in business, become successful. But there comes a time where success is no longer the motivation, because that you just have success. It's actually how you then raise the next generation becomes the focus, and actually becomes where the fulfillment is. And I can see that you're in that season in your life now as well. So how does that look like?
I think there's a couple of things there, and I really love the way you articulated that. You see a gap in a market and then you take the risk and you go and do it.
Yeah.
That comes from just passion and being able to fulfill a sector and create change and fulfill people's aspirations and need. You get a lot of pleasure from that. If you're able to provide something magical for people to enjoy, but you've done it because you've identified that in a market, there's a market gap there, and you filled that market, and then you're providing that. It provides a lot of self-satisfaction and pleasure to see that people are enjoying it.
Yeah.
So that there's that aspect of change. I love my industry, and I want to contribute to my industry, and so I enjoy being an advocate to shout off the rooftops about what is different and what is incredibly insignificant are the things that we contribute to the market to make it, independent family enterprise. Why is it important? Being able to advocate for it and say, this is all the things that it does. And yes, I guess you do accumulate a lot of knowledge in 30 years of being in business. And so you do feel a responsibility maybe, but just get a lot of joy out of being able to share what you know with others, and then have that sense of fulfillment when you see their success.
Yeah.
And I just, I find that very satisfying and very enjoyable.
And your children, are they involved in any way?
No, well, they've worked in the business over the years, of course, but Harrison is an engineer and Sophie has aspirations to be a psychologist. So she's doing her honours in psychology at the moment. So interesting to know, whether they do come back into the business, but at this time they're pursuing their own passion and dreams, and that's what we've always encouraged them to do.
Yeah.
I bet they're very, very proud of their parents.
Yeah, and I think it's always good that if you do grow up in a family where there is a business, that you cut your own path at least for a portion of your life. I think it's really important to do that, and adds great world skills that you probably wouldn't get elsewhere. So well, thank you for sharing that story. I'll reveal the gold in a moment, but I just want to ask, what would be your 3 main tips for someone in business to go from small business to the next level?
Good question, Ange. I'm keen to hear.
I'll probably put you right in the spot there.
No, top 3. From experience, I guess, just don't limit the possibilities with your mindset. Your mindset, it determines your pathway forward. If you've got a closed mindset, you are closing yourself off to opportunity. And you have to have courage to first see the opportunity, then have courage to take action, and walk through the unknown to then get to, what is revealed to you again. And that's a continuous sort of journey, isn't it? There's been many times in our journey where we have put everything on the line It was almost like an all in or nothing.
Yeah.
If we don't invest in this, we're probably going to not survive anyway. So what is the loss?
Yeah.
Or what is the cost of not doing it?
Yeah.
And it's all in, arms and legs, full risk, and whatever the outcome is, you're either going to go one way or the other.
Yeah.
You work hard to make sure you do every single thing you can to stay and fight. And you've got to have courage to do that, and resilience.
Yeah.
And every day, discipline, commitment, drive, passion,
Yeah.
all those things, because you have not only responsibility for yourself, but the people that are on the journey with you.
Yeah, that's right.
And so they believe in you and you can't let them down.
Yeah.
So just the courage, the mindset and the drive.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love
Amazing.
that. I love that thought of the people that are on the journey with you. It's like, even if you don't feel it, every day game face is on.
Yeah.
Because they are relying on you for their future and for their security. And, you know, even if the risk is there and you're, feeling a little bit nervous of that risk, face it with confidence.
Yes.
Even
It's
if you don't feel
huge.
confident, you just face it and look like you're confident and go for it.
It's huge courage, isn't
Oh,
it?
absolutely.
Huge courage.
The important thing is too, to share your vision with your team. You know, every year I redevelop our strategy. You have your core strategy, but we develop a new focus strategy every year. And one of the first things we do in the first part of the year is share that with our team. So they know and they feel a part of where we're going next. It's a continuous journey of evolving and adapting in this industry that we're in, because it's highly competitive.
And vision casting.
Every year there's a new focus, because people change all the time. And if you're not changing, you're behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
If you stand still, you're already behind. You all must continually look forward all the time. What is the next thing? What is the need that's emerging for our customers? And that changes every year. It's different. It's quite and this is what makes it so amazing.
Yeah.
And the industry is so fascinating, and why I have a deep love for it and a deep passion and a deep drive, because it's ever changing, it's dynamic, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's lots of gold I see in your ROZ, but there's a number of things that really come to mind. First of all is courage, because it takes a lot of courage to take some of those leaps that you have that we've talked about, and a lot of self-belief. Even if you know you don't have the knowledge or you don't have the experience, you believe that along the way, I can learn what I need to learn. I can glean off the people that I need to glean off. And I know I've got the strength and stamina to just keep going. And I love how that is just a part of your nature and a character. Clearly, you've learnt that as a child, but you've carried it through into adulthood. But the biggest thing that I love about you is that, yes, you're successful, but you don't keep that success to yourself. You want to take people on the journey of that with you. You've incorporated lots of local farmers, lots of local produce, lots of local businesses that are all a part of the success that you've created. We haven't talked about this, but I get a sense that you've really created a family network of all of your staff members, that you invest into them and you build them up and encourage them. That, as well as all that you do in mentoring women in the Sunshine Coast Business Women's Network, that you're just constantly giving out. So you're a conduit, really. It just flows through you. And it takes a lot of kindness to do that and to share your success with others. And I just think that's absolute gold. And you are just a diamond for this area.
Oh, thank you.
You
That's
really
lovely.
are. And I know that you have been an incredible influence on lots of people and probably been the reason for their success as well.
Oh,
so
that's kind of you to say,
Amazing.
Ange.
So inspiring.
Oh,
Yeah.
So inspiring.
And so everyone, shop IGA, please.
Yes.
well, when you shop, every dollar that you spend has a multiplier impact of times 4
Yeah.
that flows throughout the community. So it really is, people's budgets, I suppose, are becoming tighter. In the current environment.
Yeah.
And we understand that there's a finite amount of money in people's pockets to spend. but be mindful that if you do invest in local business, there's a flow-on impact that keeps our community sustained and supported. And I think we've got to reach out and support each other.
Yeah.
So good.
Beautiful.
So inspiring, Roz. It's been an absolute honour to have you on the show today. And as running my business as well, I've just been so inspired, and I'm going to take a lot of your advice on and take it with me.
Yeah. Thank you. And we wish you well for all of your endeavours in the future. No doubt going on to even more success than you have. Are there any more IGA stores in the pipeline?
Well, you never say never, do you? Every single time
I can see the twinkle in your eye, Roz.
Every time I build a new store, I'm going, I'm never doing that again.
You've just opened a new one, haven't you?
Yes.
That looks amazing, actually. I haven't been there yet. Where was that one again?
Is that the Forest Glen one?
Yeah,
that's the one I go to.
Oh, she was a little beast. They've all got their own personalities.
Yeah.
And she's a sassy little thing. I call her Ms. FG because she's got sass and attitude. But she's a feisty little, like I say, she's a feisty little redhead like her mother. But she really challenged me and for some reason. Yeah. But I kind of just knew she was going to be difficult because she was magnificent.
Yeah, wow.
And so, people are really enjoying her. But they've all got personalities. It's quite funny, and I kind of put that energy into them. I want to create a personality.
Yeah.
And really it's just, all I'm doing is just harnessing what is already there, the people, the village, the history, the background, the local story, and bringing it together and incorporating it into the design, the layout, the vibe. Yeah. And then that's how people connect to it, because they feel a part of it. They don't know why, but it's actually because it's a representation of the community.
Yeah. I love walking in there and seeing people sitting down at the cafe and even sitting outside at the tables. And there's a gift shop, there's beautiful breads. It's just a pleasure to shop. You don't feel like you're going grocery shopping.
Well, that's the whole intention.
So you're allowed a rest now because you've worked so hard on that one, but I anticipate another one will be coming.
We will see.
Another
Once it's in the blood, you just can't stop.
I know. It's almost like becomes irresistible.
Pin a
people
point
go,
on the map, Roz.
People say, when are you going to stop? Like, why do you do this? And it's like, it's bigger than me.
Yeah.
I don't see it as, we've got to have all these stores. No, I'm very selective.
Well, you've got to know it's going to work too, don't you?
Well, true. But it's almost like what we were talking before. It's about, it's like I'm just a vehicle being able to provide, to
bring the community together.
Yeah, and I just feel like it's bigger than me.
Yeah.
It's really just I'm just a part of something that is already amazing. I'm just...
Yeah. You're giving a shop front to all the producers here on the sunny coast, which is just vital, isn't it? It's just such a gem to be able to do that for everyone. It's amazing.
It's joy for me, yeah.
So I know this is an unfamiliar environment for you, Roz, is it? Because you actually run a podcast from here. I do know that because I see you with pictures with our producer Dave and Podspot Studios, and it's called...
Locavore.
The
Locavore podcast, yeah. So basically it's stories about the beautiful growers in our region, producers, manufacturers, suppliers. It's their story, showcasing their story and connecting our customers through storytelling to the people that create and grow their food.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so thank you again, Roz. It's been lovely to have you here.
Thank you for having me, lovely ladies.
Thanks so much. Oh my goodness, Ange.
I know.
Isn't Roz amazing?
What an incredible woman.
She is so inspiring. Like, just to see this 30-year journey of hers and to see where she is now with this string of IGAs and the way she's just put her whole personality into them. It's amazing.
Yeah, but you would expect somebody that's had that much success to speak in a certain way, but she doesn't. She's just so humble, and her life really is about advancing other people and bringing other people on that journey with her. And I really love that. And I actually think that's probably why she's as successful as she is. because she's so generous with who she is and the skills and the knowledge that she's learned over those years in business.
Yeah. And you know how you have like a national treasure? I feel like Roz is our Sunshine Coast treasure because she has enabled so many producers to have this avenue, this outlet for them to sell their products here on the sunny coast.
Do you know, I reckon she should be nominated for Australian of the Year.
I think so too. I think she's amazing.
She really is. And I really love listening to her childhood.
Yeah.
Because I think anybody that's really successful in business, go back and look at who they were as a child.
Yeah.
And you'll see some characteristics and things in them that they've carried through to adulthood. And you can tell that they've really utilised those skills they've learned as a kid.
It's probably also why she's so grounded. And having been the youngest of 8 siblings, like she's so grounded and humble and grew up on the land. It's like, that's why she is the character that she is.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And what I love is, like, I love to hear stories where, you know, they didn't necessarily go down a highly educational route. They maybe dropped out of school or didn't go and get a university degree, because she touched on the fact that, you know, she went for a degree, but she didn't complete her bachelor's.
Yeah.
But that was later in her life.
Yeah.
Like in her school years, it was just a very small regional school, but yet it's actually what was in her that enabled her to be as successful as she is, because she learned on the go.
Yeah.
And you hear it from a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people that are successful and, you know, have reached great heights in business, that actually they learned on the job and they didn't necessarily have to depend on education. Not negating education at all, but it's not the end of the story if you don't complete high school or you don't get a university degree.
That's right. And I just want to add one more thought that we didn't talk about in the podcast. But remember how Roz said how the first 7 years she did not enjoy it.
Yeah.
Running a grocery store, and it was pretty boring for her, and she didn't see herself stacking shelves for the rest of her life. Yeah. Imagine if Roz had given up during those 7 years. Yeah. Like, that's a long time to be bored with your job.
Such a good thought.
She could have given up in that time, but she pushed on, broke the barrier. Look what she's doing now. Yeah. Amazing. So.
Well, that's really the difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, some people do give up on those hurdles, or some people see that as an opportunity for growth, and she took the opportunity. Yeah. And that really is what makes a difference. It's those that make it are those that are prepared to take the risk.
Very inspiring.
Yeah. So that's it for today's podcast. You'll find us on all the major podcast platforms. The podcasts come out every Wednesday. We'd love to hear from you on our socials, the Gold Diggers Podcast. Tell us about your story so we can find the gold in you.
Easy as pie, lemon, apple or cherry. Loving you is so very sweet, sweet, sweet. How can it be such a piece of cake? And your smile is the icing. Loving you is a poem. Honey, you're my sugar.